Welcome to this course on International SEO. My name is Alex Kinaninik and I'll be your instructor. Welcome. In this video, I'll briefly tell you what to expect from the course and we'll start right away. Well, this course is quite focused on International SEO. We're going to talk about localization, translating your site, how to get your site to rank in specific local areas, and if you want to target specific certain languages or markets. That's what this course is going to guide you through. Nothing else, nothing more. It's designed to be relatively brief. I have another SEO course that's almost 20 hours long. That's like a master class. This isn't that. This is very focused, only International SEO. Get in, learn what you need, and get out and actually apply it the same day to your website. So that's the course. Welcome, and let's begin. With this video, let's begin doing our SEO keyword research. The industry standard free tool for this is provided by Google and it's inside Google Ads. Now, very quick distinction. The keyword research tool is absolutely free. You'll never have to pay a penny for it. But it lives inside Google Ads, and obviously with ads you have to set up your financials, etc. And that can be very confusing for students. So I'm going to walk you through the process of signing up for the Google Keyword tool so you can use it without a problem. To solve a lot of headaches and confusion, make absolutely sure that you don't just go to ads.google.com and sign up from there. Don't do that because that will give you a very long and cumbersome ad setup process. Instead of that, go to exactly this URL that I'm showing you, ads.google.com/intl/home/tools/keyword-planner. It's in the URL and it's enlarged with the black background here. That's the URL you go to. When you come here, the option you'll have is go to the keyword planner. That will help you skip all the unnecessary steps and go right to the Google Keyword Planner. Now, when you use this tool every time, you're not going to remember this URL. So the other option is to simply Google for the Google Keyword Planner. Like here, for example, I Googled for the Google Keyword Planner. And when I click on the first option, I just go to verify. Does it lead me to the Google Keyword Planner and not the ads? Yes, it does. You see this button says go to Keyword Planner. So then you say yes, and then you go through the next steps. And this will help you go directly to the Google Keyword Planner without having to go through all the steps having to do with unnecessary ad setup that we're not after in this video. It says go to the Google Keyword Planner. Now you will choose your ad account. I'm going to create a new Google ad account just because that's what you would be doing in your case most likely if you're new to this. So we'll create a new Google Ads account, create new account. Now after this screen, in the past, when you clicked continue, they used to just say, congratulations, you've set up your account, you are ready to use the Google Keyword Planner. Now they require a few more steps. So I'll click continue and we'll discuss the steps. You see now they want you to add financial information to set up your ad. Let me explain to you what to do. The easiest thing to do if you don't see how to skip these steps to set up the ad is to go through all these forms that they show you. Because once you go through all the form fields that they ask you to set up, in the end, you'll be able to use the Google Keyword tool. It's free. And even if you set up the ad, what's really important to understand is that you'll not pay for the ad because you'll pause any ad you set up. And they may just ask for financial information, but never use it. Now, if you don't have a credit card and you cannot bypass this particular step, you can use a free tool like ChatGPT to get keywords. It's not as good as this tool, but it will still give you keywords, and that tool is at least in part always free. But do your best to set up this one because this is the standard one. So let's go through this together. So let's say you set up your information, where you are, the country you're from, your billing. Then at the end here, they'll ask you, want personalized guidance from a Google Ads account strategist? You say no. Then you click submit. Then in my case, they say your account was created, but to start running your ads, they say you'll need to complete advertiser verification. Again, I don't want to run ads. I just want to use the keyword tool, but let's go with what they ask. So we'll click continue and they'll say, are you an advertising agency? You just say no. Then they ask who pays for your ads. You can say you pay for the ads directly, save and continue. And then there you go. You're at the option where you can use the Google Keyword Planner. And then you want to choose the option for discovering new keywords. So for example, let's say you are running a digital marketing agency and you may be wondering how many people are searching for this per month. Okay, let's search that. So I entered digital marketing agency. What you want to do is enter keywords that are either 1 to 2 to 3 terms to 4 terms, but not more than that, because sometimes it gets a little confused. You can enter longer keywords, but sometimes it may get confused with the variations. And you click on Get Results. Now, in the next video, you and I are going to explore these results in more detail, but I just want to show you how I browse these and how I recommend you browse these. Now, what you'll see is that there are a number of columns. Some of them are related to ads. You don't care about them. What you really want out of this tool, and the way that I love using this tool and I find very helpful, is by looking at the original keyword that I entered, which is going to be the first one listed, and it tells me the volume of search. Now, there's a very big range. The reason that the numbers are so imprecise here is because this particular account has not run ads. As soon as you start running ads, they show you more precise numbers of actual search volume. But even this is very, very useful. You can maybe assume it's somewhere in between 110 and 100K. You can see the ranges. Some ranges are between 1,000 and 10,000. Sometimes things are even between 10 and 100 without the 1,000. But you can basically ballpark approximately the volume. And then what I do is I go down this list of keywords and I check which keywords are going to be relevant for me. So if I run a digital marketing agency, then also digital marketing company is also a very good relevant keyword for me. I want people who search that to find my site because they can be good clients. They're looking for a digital marketing company, and if I run a digital marketing company, great. Now, digital agency, it's a little more vague, like digital what? I guess they mean digital marketing, so that's a good keyword. Digital marketing services, that's also great. Now, here's an interesting one, PPC agency. This is people looking to hire an agency that would run PPC ads for them, pay per click. So the people searching for PPC agency aren't looking for free traffic, they're looking for paid traffic. And let's say you specialize in free traffic. Well, this keyword would not be right for you, so you would not target that one. But the other ones, as you go down this list, and you see this list can be pretty exhaustive, 737 results, you can show rows, and then you can actually have a pretty large list. But you should browse all of these to check whether some of these searches are things that your potential clients might search and whether the volumes are high, because that would make it very attractive. But generally speaking, these are the two columns, keywords and average monthly searches is what you're interested. All of these other columns, 3 months change, year over year change, for many businesses, there just isn't that much change unless it's seasonal or it's something totally new. Competition, that's not competition in SEO, that's competition for ads. You don't care about this column either. And so what you really see is that the most important parts of this tool that are going to be very helpful to your SEO are keyword ideas, and immediately you can confirm, is there enough volume? Because you can ask for keywords from something like AI or ChatGPT, but that tool doesn't have access to the volumes of keywords. Only Google knows the actual volumes of keywords that people search in Google. And that's why this is the premier tool. Now, there are other SEO keyword research tools, and we cover them later in this course, but most of them are paid. This is the free one that still just about everyone in the SEO industry uses. So with that in mind, in the next video, I'm going to show you more of the ins and outs and how I would make ideal use of this tool for your business. Now let's explore how to take your English language keywords that your website is targeting and ensure that those keywords are still popular in another language that you're trying to translate your website to. And for this example, I'm going to use Google Translate. You can use ChatGPT. It's probably better because you can just put all your keywords in there and then you can get translations of all your keywords very quickly. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use Google Translate because I know not everyone is a fan of ChatGPT. But both of those tools are usable here. And I'm going to enter in the English poetic music. and get my Spanish translation. In this particular example, we're going to translate to Spanish. Of course, obviously, you can choose any language you want. And obviously, I don't speak Spanish. In Spanish, the keyword it's giving me is música poética. Now, I don't know if that's actually how people talk in different countries that speak Spanish. So what I do is I go to the Google keyword tool, and as you can see, I enter música poética here, and I ensure that my language is set to Spanish. It's a little hard to find that setting, but the two important settings when you're doing Google keyword research for different languages are locations and language. For Spanish, we can change this to any other language that we like. For now, we'll keep it in Spanish. And the reason locations are important is because what if you want to check, do people search that way in Mexico versus Spain? Because obviously it's called Spanish, but it's a slightly different version of spoken Spanish. So you can actually go and check like Spain. So you can go Spain, and let's see if people actually search like that there. So it's going to redo the search, get results, and people are not really interested in poetic music in Spain. As you can see, only 10 people a month approximately. That's not so good. What if we target Mexico? So we're going to target that country, and we're going to see that generally speaking, it's just not a very popular term from country to country. But at the same time, we know that dozens of countries in the world have Spanish as their primary language, or at least many of the citizens speak Spanish. So we're going to say all world. We don't need to restrict ourselves. We just want to choose the Spanish language. And when we redo this search, you see, okay, it's 90 people a month searching this. And we want to compare this to English. Like, for example, if in English, a lot of people are searching this, then maybe we can see that, the phrasing is off. But if the numbers are approximately the same, then we can probably safely assume that, hey, this keyword is used as it is. So when we enter poetic music in English, we want to make sure that we switch our language to English and just look over the locations so that you don't make a mistake. All locations, great. And we're going to see that, poetic music in English, people search this a very significant amount of time. Why is it that in the Spanish language, this isn't searched like that? So we're going to go to Spanish, and we're going to get that keyword, and we're going to see that, not only is this keyword not popular the way it's phrased, but the keyword suggestions are also unpopular. There's a very small amount of traffic. So what you would do then is perhaps go to a translator, somebody who speaks Spanish, or go to ChatGPT. And so what I do is I go to ChatGPT and I ask that, hey, what are the keywords that are popular in Spanish language search related to Musica Poetica? It seems that this isn't how this phrase is used here. And it gives me a number of options. For example, the second one is poetic songs. This is closer to what we wanted. Whereas it explains that Musica Poetica might not be commonly used in the Spanish language searches. You see, that's what we were after. We were after, does that phrase translate? Now, you could skip Google Translate entirely because it's a little bit more error prone, and you could go to ChatGPT immediately, which is actually something that I would do. The only reason I didn't do it that way is because I wanted to show you an example without ChatGPT, because some people find ChatGPT controversial, and I didn't want that to be the only option. But in any case, so what you would do is go and search for this particular phrase, for example, because it means poetic songs. I've already done that here. You see in Spanish, it doesn't have thousands of searches like I saw in the English language, but it has 600 searches, which is much better already. Now, it could just be that there are more English speakers than Spanish speakers in the world. Now, the difference in the search volumes could be cultural. It could be that perhaps this isn't the main keyword. So what you would do is run the additional keywords through it, and you would actually look at the suggestions it will give you. Usually it will give you more suggestions. In this particular case, it doesn't give you a lot of suggestions. So you may still find another phrase that is more popular, but you've already found one good phrase that's translated, because it's not a lot to have 600 people, but you'll take that traffic, right? It's also not zero. Now, if you go down this list of suggestions that ChatGPT gives you, you can try different things here, but I want to show you this baladas románticas. You can comment on my Spanish language pronunciation in the comments. I feel like I did a good job with that baladas románticas, but usually I do a horrible job pronouncing, so I'm very happy about this. Anyway, baladas románticas, you see 33,000 people are searching that. Wow, what an incredible find and discovery. Suddenly, by identifying the way in people search in Spanish, we are giving ourselves the potential for exposure to these extra 33,000 people, which is so much. That's the power of international SEO when you get it right. And of course, you can go and try that with English. Select English, and in English, this would be romantic ballads. And now, you see, it's interesting, right? Culturally, we talk differently, even though it seems like, romantic ballads, yeah, why wouldn't that be popular in English? For some reason it isn't. But in Spanish, it is. So if I have romantic song page, right, romantic songs, that might be closer to how we speak in English. For that, there's a tremendous amount of search. I want to rank for this for sure. And additional keywords, best love songs, all of these you would try to translate and see how people search in Spanish. But what you would note definitely is this keyword, baladas románticas. You've got to find, are any of your pages closely related to that, where maybe you aren't phrasing things like romantic ballads, which would translate by some translation services like baladas románticas, but you want to do that extra bit of editing and overseeing to make sure that this keyword is definitely covered, because we just uncovered 30,000+ people a month who can come to your page on this, who are looking for romantic songs. And if you have romantic songs or poetic songs, perhaps for many of them, this would be a great match and would capture that great traffic while being sensitive to how people speak and search locally in that language, even though, as you saw, it's very different and unexpected from the original language. Of course, your life would be much easier if whoever was doing this spoke Spanish fluently and English fluently. But the way I explained it here, most people can do 85% of the work, even if they don't speak both languages fluently. Of course, in the end, you want to have somebody who speaks that language fluently to check, but then it's cheaper for them to check. But in all cases, even when they check, they still must be using the Google keyword tool to ensure that the keyword they thought up in their mind is indeed popular in the language in which they are targeting. That part should be done by anyone who is fluent in both languages or not. With this video, let's begin talking about how to optimize your SEO for a specific area you want to service. So perhaps not a country, but a city and some surrounding suburbs perhaps. There are a number of things you can do for SEO to help you rank higher for a specific geographical local area, but the most common one is the one I'm going to show you now, and that is by creating a Google My Business or Google Business profile. The way you do this is you go to, as you can see, I'm on google.com/business, and this is where you go to register a business that operates in a local area. So for example, let's say that I'm a global company. Let's say I'm a global dog walking company. But in every city that I service, I have a local kind of marketing that I have to do. So what you would do is create an account here. You would go to google.com/business. If you already have a Google account, as you probably are already aware of, Google has a unified sign-in, so you'll be able to sign in. And what they're going to do is verify that you have access to some physical address at some location, and you can give them your own personal address of your home, perhaps if you want to target a local area. But of course, very importantly, if you want to stay private with your address that you give them, there is an option to keep it private and not actually shown. Like you'll have a little dot on the map, but your actual address won't be shown, so people won't come. But also, many businesses actually have local offices. And if you don't have a local office, you can perhaps use the address of someone you know, as long as you don't show their actual address. So there are basically many ways to get a local listing, as long as you're a little bit creative. And when you get a local listing right away, that listing appears for when people search. So for example, if I'm a user, if I'm a potential customer and I'm searching for a dog walker in Boston, if you have a dog walking business, you would love for your business to appear on this map. And you would love to expand that to every city in the state, then in the country, then in the world, as long as there is demand for that service in the geographical areas you target. So by filling out a local listing here in google.com/business, you get to put yourself on the map in some local area. And under the same listing, Google offers you the ability to create multiple locations, provided that you actually operate in those locations. So you could, in theory, cover an entire country just by creating locations in every major city or every city over 100,000 people. Because for smaller cities, you'll just be present in a city that's a little bigger but close by, and you'll still have that coverage area. And again, for different businesses it's different. Obviously, for dog walking, it's hyper local. It's kind of within a neighborhood, really. But generally speaking, this is how this would work. And the process to sign up is very easy. You just create an account on google.com/business. You fill out some information about your business. Hopefully everything goes smoothly and you'll be appearing on the map. Now, the title for your business is very important here. As you can see, Boston, you see here the titles largely have city name. So you have that keyword for your city name. Then you would have the keyword for the actual service that you provide. And so when people search for dog walker in Boston, ideally you would appear there, and this is how you target a local specific area. If you're targeting a specific country or region or a culture or a geographical area, there are some instances when people what's called self-identify who they are. So for example, let's say you have a recipe that you're promoting. Well, there's probably a recipe of some soup that people make differently in different parts of the world. So you would say XYZ soup, Georgian style, or Ukrainian style, or Mediterranean style. Immediately, you kind of know, okay, Mediterranean style, okay, maybe I'll target that. And I had a client, for example, who had a travel business, and specifically that travel business was, the client was based in Africa, and the travel business was for people in Africa. And so the keywords were often for people in Nigeria, for people in another country, destinations for people in this country. It doesn't have to be only about travel. Sometimes maybe you have a product that's very popular for a certain kind of person, and that person who's searching, for example, shoes for people with wide feet. That's very common, right? Or things like that. So sometimes people self-identify who they are. And depending on what your business is, there can be so many examples. When it comes to targeting certain cultures or geographical areas, you want to think about in what cases will people self-identify who they are. Those keywords will not have large search volumes, so very often the keyword research tools, they will not really give you those suggestions because those suggestions are small. They're relatively small. They're 1 or 2% of the overall query. So the search engines don't know that you need that, but you should think about which of my current keywords are also keywords where people might attach shoes for someone in this area, or shoes for someone in, some use case or some kind of region. It doesn't have to be shoes, it doesn't have to be travel. These are just examples. But you want to do that thinking, because the search engine, the keyword tools won't really help you with it that much. But the good thing is that those particular clients, if they find your website, it's very likely that you're one of the very few websites who cater specific to them. And when they see that your content caters specifically to the thing that they're self-identifying, which is very important for them, which is why they're literally typing that into Google, it's much more likely that they'll buy from you because what you're selling is extra for them. So the conversion rate of those clients, even though the search volume will be small, the conversion rate will be high. So it's actually quite a lucrative strategy to think about how will people self-identify in which situations, in which cases in their life, and make content or at least use keywords for that. Search engines provide different search results depending on where the person searching is located. So for example, let's say I'm in the United States now and I'm planning to travel to Italy, Doesn't matter what I'm going to do there. But if I search in Italy, it's going to give me local results. If I search in the United States, it's going to give me results that are right for the person searching about the trip, right? So Google is smart about that. It's right about it. It's correct in doing that. What we have to do as search marketers is test in both places. So wherever you are, that's easy to test. You just go and type things into Google, and what you can kind of see where your site might come up in the search results. If you already made that content, your site might come up, or at least you might get a sense of the competition and the kind of results that come up. But how do you test from locally in the other place? Well, you can either have someone that you know, like a coworker who's living there, who may live there, and so you can actually ask them, hey, can you search this and send me a screenshot of the search results? Or you have some other options, like you can use a VPN software. They're really usually very cheap, like $10 a month, and you can set your location of your browser to anywhere in the world, and Google will give you results for that region, usually with good accuracy. I've done that before to test. You can also set your browser language so that you can kind of see how it would give you results in a different language. That also is something you can do to test the language. But in this case, we're just mostly talking about, well, what if you're in one spot, but you want to see how the results look in a different spot, and you don't have a person who lives there? That's where a VPN has come in handy for me. To be honest, I haven't tried setting further settings in my computer to tell Google that I'm from somewhere, and I think that's not even possible because Google kind of knows where you are. So the best way that I know is to use a VPN to see what the result will be like in a specific area. Like you tell the VPN, I'm in Rome, and it will give you and then search like as though you're in Rome, and it will give you those local results. So you can test what kind of sites come up. Does your site come up? If it doesn't, you'll be able to see maybe why not. Why are some other sites preferable? Are they more referencing some cultural things? Are they better for actual Italians who are there? And then maybe you can change your own page to have what it didn't have before that will help it rank higher. And that way you'll have everything covered. Search results for people who are not in that area, searching about the area, and search results for people in the area, searching in that area. With this video, I want to introduce a new section of the course in which we're going to talk about citations, link building, and similar topics that will help your international SEO. Now, a huge caveat when it comes to this subject matter. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this was incredibly important. I'll explain in a second why. But now it's becoming a lot less important. It's still important today, but it's decreasing in importance. To understand why, we have to understand how Google decides which websites should rank higher or lower. If you go back to the very early days of Google, what made the Google algorithm better than other search engines is it was able to figure out which sites are actually better. And it did that by seeing and observing how many websites link to other websites. So for example, if I'm an authoritative news site or some kind of a big website, and I have a lot of reference material and I'm the industry standard in some industry, a lot of other sites will link to me when they want to show an example of something good or example of something authoritative. And one link is like a vote, another link is like a vote, 100 links is like a lot of votes of quality, and thousands of links is like a tremendous amount of votes, right? And so Google would crawl the web and see which sites link to which other sites the most, and the most linked to sites were deemed the best ones because they were deemed to be the most authoritative ones, and other search engines were late to that game, and so Google won. That's how really they won the search engine game, is through this algorithm. 25 years ago or 30 years ago, that was cutting edge. Today, and actually in the years past, marketers caught on to this, and they decided to manipulate the search engines by buying links, requesting links, exchanging links, which none of this works especially well moving forward. Because In the beginning, this worked for Google very well, but as marketers started gaming the system, it became harder for Google to tell. They were still very good at telling who gaming the system, but it was kind of a more of a muddy area for them to be in. So now the way they can tell which side is better is by using their own algorithms for artificial intelligence to determine which pages on the web provide the best content for whatever people are searching for particular queries. And so that's why this whole idea of link building is important still, but it's going away gradually. Now, there's another very confusing, I would say, term, and it's called citations. What's the difference between links and citations? Just to give you a little refresher to what's been said in this lecture already. If you're not familiar, a link is basically, if I have a website, I would hyperlink to another website. And so other websites traditionally wanted other websites to hyperlink to them. The more hyperlinks externally going into a website was considered to be better. Now, there's also this thing called citations, and there's this thing called brand mentions. What if a brand mention is, what if I talk about some brand, but don't, like my name actually. It's a unique name. There's no other person who's named Alex Kanedinik in the world. So if anywhere there's a mention of Alex Kanedinik online, even if it's not linked or hyperlinked, it's a brand mention. It's my brand. That's my name. And so if you have a brand like Nike, even if it's not linked, Google can tell, hey, people are talking about this. It must be important. That's brand mention. It actually still is effective for SEO because that's a vote. Hey, people are talking about this. Must be worthwhile. And somewhere in the middle of brand mentions, links, are citations. Citations are links from things like local listing directories and links in the bio of your social media profiles. Those are things you can add on your own. It's not really a vote of confidence or a vote of quality if you can add it on your own, but it's kind of a little tiny vote. Hey, I'm here, I'm present, I'm trying. That's how Google would look at it. And of course, if you have a Twitter account with 10 million followers and you have a link in your bio, that link is much stronger than if you have a Twitter account with 1 follower and a link in your bio, right? So the strength of the account matters too. The authority of the accounts that talk about and that have the citations on them also matter. But in any case, that's links. Used to be super important. Now it's less important. It's not zero important. It doesn't have zero importance. So we will cover it. But just know it's not something to over obsess about. It's something to do a little bit and move on with your life. And move on, when I say with your life, move on with your marketing life. Do other things for marketing and for SEO. And what's more important now is your on-page optimization and the interlinking of the links from your pages to your other pages. That's actually becoming still as important and more important, because when you link within your website from one page to another of your pages, and other pages on your site link to some specific page on your website, or some pages relatively prominent on your site, well, that says to Google, hey, I think on my site this is what's important, and Google will evaluate that. They will take that into consideration, and we'll touch on that briefly as well. So those are all the kinds of links. Links within your own website, external links, citations, and brand mentions. And now hopefully you're getting a sense of what's important, what's less important, and how you should prioritize these. By the way, to build external links from other sites is really hard. So it's actually good that it's going away, because it's not something anybody actually wanted to do in the past, because it used to be very time consuming to get links from really reputable good sites. But anything you do on your own website, that's a lot faster, because you don't have to get permission. You don't have to get another website owner to get involved. You can just change your website, which most people are pretty fluent with, or at least they hire freelancers, and the freelancers are pretty quick with that. So it's actually less time consuming and easier moving forward. So a big pain point of this link building process is actually going away, which is a nice byproduct. So that's the lengthy but it had to be lengthy introduction to the subject matter, which has been getting complicated over the last 25 plus years. And so it deserves a little bit of a history and a background so that you fully understand the ecosystem and where we are in the evolution of the ecosystem. When you are beginning to think about how to get your website to rank higher, you have a few options like link building. We'll talk about that later. And some easier options like brand mentions and citations. In this video, I'm going to explain to you about brand mentions and citations, which are actually the first and easier things you can do to get external mentions of your site. So this is a blog post of mine. It doesn't matter what it's about. The only thing I want to share with you is an example of a brand mention. You see in this paragraph, I'll make it a little bigger for you. It says learning from Altium, and then I link to this Altium and on why it's better than this Circuit Studio. You see how Circuit Studio is not linked, but it's certainly a brand mention. It's a very specific, unique brand online. Even Eagle, when mentioned in a certain context with certain keywords around it that are industry keywords, probably there's only one brand name Eagle for that. So if you have a unique brand name like Circuit Studio or Eagle or my name, Alex Ganadinik, there's nobody else named that way, or even my website, problemio.com, it's unique, then even brand mentions, they are the easiest things to get, simplest things to get, because people don't have to link to you, but Google begins to put your website on their radar. It's a tiny, tiny trust signals. And so in this video, we're after the tiny trust signals that are very easy and doable. So that's a brand mention. Now, what's a citation? A citation can be a link from basic social media sites. For example, this is my Twitter profile, and you see you get to put your website on there. Google understands that anyone can put their own link and link into their own site. It's not that hard to do. It doesn't build that much trust, but it builds a little bit of trust. But what's also important is the activity of the social account. If this account had no tweets, no followers, no activity, then of course it will be less impactful. It would help my website rank less. But this is a real account. I use it. I don't have 1 million followers, but I have some followers and I use it sometimes. So this link is worth slightly more. And you see, I also put links to my books and courses in my bio. And when you actually use this profile as a real user, when you make some posts, you can actually link to your website as well. Those are also social media citations. Now, citations, again, they're not that impactful and powerful, but they'll help a little bit. You just have to keep doing it regularly and a lot. They're very easy to do. Now, that's Twitter. Let's take a look at Facebook. On Facebook, you can register a business page, and this is my business page. So you can see in the About section on the left side here, you can add your link. You see, link to your website right here. There's a link to my website there, problemio.com. And also the page's name is Problemio. So I'm reiterating the brand. And I also, you see, put that little link of my website in the little About blurb. And everywhere else I could, you see. And so I made a list for you of citations you can build on day one. It's here. Let's go through it. On social media, you can create a Facebook page like I just showed you, a Facebook group that's public so that Google can crawl it. And on your personal Facebook profile, if your personal profile is not private, then you can add as your employment link or your current job, link your website. Also create accounts on all of these social networks, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and things like TikTok, they always change. But right now, when I made this video, I checked, and you can put a link in the bio. You can't hyperlink it, but you can at least mention it in your About. So that's what you do. You can create a Quora listing and certainly create a YouTube channel for your business. You don't have to have a lot of videos, but certainly at least in your live channel, there will be a link in the About section to your website. And then there's this local citations. Now, let me explain what that means. Traditionally, citations have been associated with local businesses. Like, let's say you're a local cleaner. Then, of course, you would want to be listed locally. And there's all kinds of local directories. What I would recommend is even if you have a global business, a website, you can add your business to all of these local listing sites. Google.com/business, Yelp.com, Bing Places, Hot Frog. These are general directories for the most part. Are they going to give you a lot of lift for your website? No. Are they going to give you a tiny, tiny boost? Yes. Most sites on day one, that's exactly what they need. And if you're not a local website, you can still provide maybe some home address or something like that. In none of these, you have to make your address public to the general public. It can be private, but at least you can create a business listing with your link to your website. So you'll start to have all these activities from all of these major sites, and that will be the boost that you can have on day one. I'm going to scroll through these so that you can look. That's the whole list. I'll also have this as a downloadable PDF, so you can download it or at least use it as a PDF for reference, and then go through these and create profiles on all these sites with your links. And some of these profiles, like Pinterest, maybe you don't plan to use Pinterest, but the ones you do plan to use, maybe your LinkedIn is important. Try to make an effort to not just create a profile and leave it dormant, but maybe at least once a month post something so that you have a little bit of life to that account, and that will translate positively to the impact of your citation. Now, are you going to get clients from these? Most likely not. This is not for that. This is just for giving you that slight little early boost for SEO for your website. In this video, I want to introduce you to an effective way to immediately get a lot more SEO traffic by using a special plugin that translates your website, whatever it is, WordPress, Wix, whatever, into over 60 languages potentially. And that is billions of people who, if your site is currently only English or currently any language, if you translate into 60 additional languages, it's billions of other people that are searching in those languages. And I'll be showing you how to set it up in just minutes. And as you know, in SEO, in English, almost all good keywords are extremely competitive. And just about every other language, every keyword in every other language is easier to rank for than in English, so your site will rank faster. For example, if you're trying to rank for the keyword hello, then right away what's going to happen is this plugin is going to take your website and create identical pages that are immediately translated. There's a new URL on them, and they target like Spanish, hola, or French, bonjour, and many other languages. And if you're wondering, can I install this on my website? Well, yeah, it's available on WordPress, Drupal, Shopify, Wix, BigCommerce, blah, 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 Joomla. You get the idea. Squarespace, Webflow, and even if you don't have used any of those, you can just use plain old JavaScript to make it work for you. Now, let me walk you through this plugin. Now, I want to show you how this translation plugin works. When you go to their pricing, it's important to understand how the pricing works. You can get a free translation of 2,000 words for one language. So if you have some kind of a sales page that is for a universal product, sales pages usually don't have a lot of words. So you can maybe translate a couple of sales pages in a different language, and you can get that for free. That's great. Now, if you have more sales pages that can be translated to different languages, and people who are shopping in those different languages, either in your country but using a different language, or in other countries but using that same different language, if you have more sales pages, you might want to upgrade to this one and give it a try, because it's pretty reasonably priced, and you get more sales pages or content pages that make you money. Obviously, if you have a limit of budget, then you also have a limit of words you can buy to translate. So you have to select only your most money-making pages that can keep making money in a different language. That's the strategy. Or even if you have a blog post where you don't necessarily make money, but you have ads, you can translate it to a different language. Hopefully it ranks #1 in a different language, and you just make a little bit more money with those ads. That's if you're kind of on a low budget. If you're working for a company who can afford a little bit more, then you want to explore the needs of your website. Like if you have a large website with 1 million words on a bunch of blog posts, then you want to start looking into, is our website around 200,000 words? That's if you have a regular blog. But let's say you're blogging for a while now, or having a lot of sales pages, then you may be reaching 1 million words on your site. And obviously, if you have some kind of a Fortune 5000 company, you probably have over 5 million words on your site, at which point you don't really care about the budget as much. So there is a tier for every budget. And I did reach out to Weglot to see if students in my courses can get a discount. And this discount is possible for any tier. If I sign up to their affiliate program, they can create an affiliate code for me, a discount code for students. So that's only optional. You don't have to sign up through that, obviously. It's optional, but the option can save you a little bit of money. The way you get to my affiliate link is on this video. As you're watching it, there's a little folder. It's called resources, and the link says optional discount with this coupon, with my affiliate link. And you click this, and then when you go to pricing, and let's say you choose your tier, start for free, create an account. And just to remind you, going through my affiliate link is only optional. You can just do this by going through weglot.com and doing the same process, but it's through my affiliate account through which I'm able to give you the discount. But you should not feel at all compelled or pressured to do that, obviously. Then you click sign up. Then you get an email to confirm your account. We'll do that together. Then you open that email, just say confirm my email. Then you log in with that email password you made. Then you give it a project name, for example, music website, website technology. In my case, it's WordPress. Next. Then they give you this API key. You copy that, and then you go to your WordPress. So we'll do that together. I'll show you how to install it. This is the dashboard of my website. So what I would do is go to plugins, and I would go to add new plugin, and I would search for Weglot. So I'm going to search for Weglot. Enter. It's going to search. It's going to find this, and I'm going to click install now. It's going to take a few seconds to install. As you can see here, it says it can translate your website to 110 different languages, meaning it's billions of people you can potentially reach. Once it's installed, you'll click on activate. And once it's activated, on the left side of your WordPress, you should find an option for Weglot. So I'll click that. If you don't find it, you can go to installed plugins and find it there, because you'll have that there. Here. So you'll go to Weglot either there or there, and you will go to settings. And this is where you paste that API key they gave you. And then you choose what languages you want to choose. So I'm going to choose Spanish, for example. And I'm going to click on Save Changes. And then it will say, well done, your website is now multilingual. So you can go to your website and try it out. So you go to your front page, and on the bottom right, you'll see there's an option for English, and there's also an option for Spanish. And I can go to Spanish option, and you see it's in Spanish. It got translated. My blog is all in Spanish, all the blog posts. So like this one, everything's in Spanish. And what you'll notice is, you see in English, the URL will be touchedbyasong.com, and it would not be with this ES. It would just be like that, songs about a crush. And that would be the English language post. But in Spanish, all it does is take the URL.com, and then after the first slash, it adds ES. And now it's in Spanish. So that's how easy it is to translate. So what I would recommend is, if you have a kind of a website where you can make use or make money with traffic who search in a different language, either they live in your country or they live in other countries, but in your case, what you want to think through is, does it make financial sense? For example, if you want more traffic, more awareness, it probably does make financial sense. If you're conscientious about, is it profitable? Like, will you make more money? You want to try this with a few pages of yours where you think you could make money. If it does make money, you keep your account. If it does not make money, you turn your account off. But in all cases, you can translate and try this with a couple of pages that you think are like really important for you. In my case, for example, I have a page about love songs. That's a really big keyword that, hey, why not try to translate that into a different language and see if I can rank? It costs nothing. That is free to translate one page up to 2,000 words for one language. So you can definitely try it for your website. And if you have ads on your website, then of course you'll be making some money even with the free option. So those are the thinking points of how your budget relates to which account level you might want to get. and whether you want to get this at all, because in some cases it's not useful at all, in which case obviously you wouldn't get it. But for many businesses, this can be quite useful. And if you start the 10-day free trial, this will be your dashboard. And if you need to manage your plan, you would click on Manage Plan and choose different accounts. If you pay annually, you get 2 months free, and so it becomes generally cheaper. Additionally, there's another discount. You can click this link, click here to enter your code, and the code is Alex10. So it used to be 790. If you apply this, it becomes 711. Basically a 10% discount. And notice they haven't asked me for my credit card yet, so you can set this up for free without paying, so you don't have to worry about getting billed or anything like that until you're sure that you are ready. So that's also how to manage weak load, to make sure that you get your discounts right and don't get billed unnecessarily. When you're doing international SEO and you've translated your website already, the next thing you want to do is think about how can you curate your content for a specific geographical area. For example, let's say you're targeting a specific country. You know that that country has a specific culture. They eat specific food. They have some games that are universal, but some games that they play within a family, or sports that they play just in that country. And many other cultural things that are unique and specific to that country or region. So what you would do is blog about, let's say you're selling cooking supplies or doing anything else, well, you want to tie it into how to cook that specific dish that people eat in that area. Or maybe if you have a different subject matter related to a game or related to a place, or something local that's unique to that country or area, and then blog about it. So if you're selling some cooking supplies and you want to target that country, well, the article wouldn't be a general recipe article. The blog post will be about that specific dish that people eat in that country or region. And then, of course, mostly people who search that, or people who would discover that, are only living in that country or region. And that's how you tap into understanding the culture of a place and creating content about different things in that culture that are unique to that specific area. And that's how you target the actual individuals who live in that area, which goes just beyond just targeting the language translation. A big part of SEO is making sure that your website has good usability, it's clear, it's easy to navigate, people like being on your site. When you're talking about international SEO, what we have to think about are the differences in culture and the color schemes and the images that are used that are specific to a different culture. So if I'm in the United States, there are some things that are, some design patterns that are popular that are not popular in other parts of the world. And so what you have to do is consult with a designer who is either knowledgeable or is local to a certain area, and they will tell you, hey, these are the fonts that are popular. These are the color schemes that will work well. These are the kind of images that work well and don't work well. Especially, let's say, maybe you have some people at an event in one of your photos, and they're drinking alcohol. Well, alcohol is prohibited in some countries, and there are many cultural nuances that you want to take into account, because if people get turned off, if they're from a different culture and you give them the website that's for United States but they're from a different place, they may get turned off. So you may also have to adjust a few of the images and make sure they're culturally sensitive and the color schemes are fitting the country and the regions that you're targeting. And people will kind of subconsciously, the users will kind of subconsciously grow a larger affinity towards your website if it fits to what they're already accustomed to culturally. So that's something that people definitely do when it comes to international SEO. One thing we want to do when it comes to SEO is think beyond Google search only. And you might think, am I talking about Bing and Yahoo? Not at all, actually, because Bing and Yahoo work very similarly to Google search. What I'm talking about is other search engines like YouTube, like Amazon. And you see when you're targeting different countries, different search engines are more or less prominent. For example, in the United States, the e-commerce search engine is Amazon. But in India, there's another place that's similar to Amazon, but it's Flipkart. If you're targeting United States traffic, you wouldn't really deal with Flipkart. But if you're starting to target traffic or the demographics that live in India, you would put your product on Flipkart. Similarly with other directories, for example, if you have a local business and you want to appear in local searches for some geographical area in the United States, you probably are aware of Yelp. It's a directory where you can place a local business listing, and it's more or less fine. People have a love and hate relationship specifically with Yelp. Not everybody loves it because they kind of sell ads too aggressively and they have some other problems, but it's one of the more prominent ones, and there are many similar ones in the United States. But what if you go outside the United States? Yelp is still prominent, but there are other competing local directory websites. What are they in your region? I cannot begin to know because I don't know where you live. So the way you would find it is you would do your local search, let's say dentist or whatever. For example, even if you're not a dentist, you would just search locally, coffee shop near me or dentist near me. This is for local business listings, local businesses. And whatever the sites are that come up for your region, those, you would look through those. Some of them will be individual business owner sites. We're not talking about those in this video, but some of them will be local business directories that you are seeing are prominent and popular in your area. And so you would look, can I post my business there? So whichever geographic area where you want to be prominent, research what are the marketplaces. If you sell products like Amazon and Flipkart example, and if you have a local business, what are the top local directories where actual customers can actually discover me, because those rank highly in Google searches in that specific region. And this is also true even across industries. So for example, in dog walking, there are sites like WAG and rover.com. For finding doctors, there are other sites like that. So it's per geography, but also per niche. There are many local directories that you want to take advantage of so that your local customers can find you when they're searched locally. And that's the way to do it. Go wide on the marketplaces where you post your products or services, and also focus on your niche as well as general ones. In this video, I want to introduce you to the Hreflang tag. It's an HTML tag that's pretty basic that is going to help you direct Google or other search engines for how to interpret your pages. So for example, let's say your website is apple.com. And of course, if you're apple.com, you need to have your website in every kind of different language. So what you'd have is apple.com in English, like we mostly think of it. But for Spanish speakers, they have apple.com/sp, and after /sp, everything in the Spanish language website is mirrored to what is in the English language website. So if you have like this, apple.com/page, then you will have that also in the Spanish version, and obviously similarly in the French version. And sometimes your directory structure will be so clean, but sometimes it won't, and sometimes the page won't be exactly the same looking because you might have a different name for the actual page. So in Spanish, instead of page, it will be, just for our example's sake, I'm not a Spanish speaker, but we will call it pagina. So right away, it becomes a little bit unclear to Google or other search engines whether it's just a translation or you meant to have things differently, because obviously the language itself will be different because it's going to be a translation. So because it gets a little confusing, we need a tool to tell Google or other search engines that, hey, this page is related to this page. It's the same page, just a different language. And our tool for that is the Hreflang tag. I'll show you how it looks like. Here is the format of the Hreflang tag. First of all, it lives in the header section of your page. That's the HTML header area. And very likely, if you use a tool for translation like Weglot or something similar, they'll add that there automatically for you. You don't have to think about it too much. But if you do your translations and page creation manually, obviously you're going to have to change the HTML manually as well. In that case, you have to understand the format. Here is the format. There are a couple of elements to this tag. The first one is link, rel, alternate. That usually doesn't change. You can ignore it. Now the href, that's the original page. So in our case, we wouldn't have it like Spanish. We would have it just the basic English version. That's the original, which means that whichever page you're putting this tag on, it's a translation of this page. And what is the language of the translation? It's this element right here, Hreflang country code. Now, the country code can be easy. Like if the translation is in Spanish, it's pretty easy to guess that the code is SP for Spain. And if you're translating to French, it's pretty easy to guess that it's FR for France. But what if you're confused? Or what if you don't want to guess and make a mistake? Great. There are resources for this. And I'll have the link to this in the resources of this video, so you can go to a page like that and just check the country code that you're targeting. But here's an example of a page that details all the language codes. So as you scroll down, you can see that whatever language you're targeting, you can easily get the country code. And again, I'll have the link to this page in the resources of this video, so you can easily go and browse this on your own whenever you need to look this up. But in any case, as you can see, here we are. Our HTML line is complete, and all we have to do is just make sure that this is added to our page, and it's going to help Google not be confused. Now, there's another reason to have this. If you have multiple pages of the same thing but in different language, and that is to make sure that you don't confuse Google enough so that it thinks you have duplicate content, because after all, it's kind of the same content, it's just different pages. So this also helps it reference what's the original page and what are the translations. And once you have this tag in the headers of your pages, you should be all set. In this video, I want to explain an important concept in international SEO, which is CCTLD, which is kind of cryptic, but it stands for country code top level domain. This is instead of a domain ending in a .com, which is common. If you want to have a domain that focuses on a specific country, you can have something like, for Canada, domain.ca instead of .com, or for UK, it will be co.uk. And here's a Wikipedia page that has a list of all of these. And of course, I'll have the link to this page in the resources of this video, so you can visit this URL and find the country code that's relevant for you if you need it. So whatever country you want to target, this has a list. As you can see, I'm scrolling. Like Australia is .au, Belgium is .be, and so on and so on. So whatever country you have, you can easily find your country. And if you want to create a website that is just focused on a certain country, having a domain that's instead of a .com ends with a country code can help your website visitors understand that, oh, this is for them, and that builds a little bit more trust and interest. Because if they're in a specific country and your website explicitly expresses that it focuses only on a specific country, that adds a little trust and interest in website visitors from that specific country. Of course, it's only optional. Even if you focus on a specific country, you can still have a .com domain, but certainly in this course, we should cover the idea of a country code top-level domain, because that does help your website visitors realize that your website is made specifically for them and engage a little more. And an additional benefit of having such a domain is that it directs search engines that the content on that website is for users of a specific country, which can help to rank that website higher for people searching within that specific country, because obviously it will be more relevant for them. So a CCTLD, that's country code top-level domain, that helps search engines and users. But of course, the part about search engines, you want to take it with a grain of salt, because now there's so much AI and Google is so smart that it's up to Google how it ranks your website in the end. But certainly, traditionally, top-level domains with the appropriate country codes have been a part of international SEO and have helped those websites rank just a little higher for people searching from that specific country. In this video, I want to give you a few options for how to structure and architect your website if you need to have your website appear in different languages for different users. So there are a few structures. The first one is by using subdomains. It will look like this: england.websitename.com, USA.websitename.com, Canada.websitename.com, and any other country that you target. You'd basically have a version of your website for that country on a subdomain. This is an option, but I'll explain why this is my least favorite option for SEO. Google treats subdomains as different websites, which means that if you target 200 countries or 100 countries or 20 languages, it's going to treat it like 20 different websites, which means that all of these different websites in Google's eyes are going to be smaller and less authoritative and less trusted than if it was all under one domain. This is a common problem with subdomains, which is why I would steer away from the subdomain option. The next option that's reasonable is using country codes as parameters. It looks like this. You see you have the website name, it's all under one domain, and then programmatically your website pulls up the content for that specific country, which requires extra database calls and extra programming complexities, which presents its own difficulties. So if I could, I would stay away from this, which leaves us with this option of using country-specific URLs. Like the website name.com would be the same, but you'd have a little directory like everything in English or in a certain language or for a certain country would be under this directory. Everything for UK would be here. Everything, let's say it's a different language, so French will be here. So that way it's a lot more manageable. There's less programming. And pound for pound, if it was my website, I would probably choose this. But keep in mind, all of these are valid ways to structure your website to target different countries or different languages. It just so happened that I gave you my preferences and what I see most commonly used in practice, but that doesn't mean you can't use one of them if you have some other reasons to use one or the other. But if you have no specific preferences, then use the options I suggested in the order I gave you of how I choose them. In this video, I want to make a distinction that is sometimes very difficult to notice. There is the concept of multilingual SEO versus multinational SEO. I admit it's very confusing. They even sound similar. So in this video, let's focus a little bit deeper and make the distinction of which is which. First, obviously, multilingual means you're going to target multiple languages. And multinational means you're going to target multiple countries or regions. But the tricky thing is that sometimes multilingual websites are not multinational because they only target one country instead of many. And similarly, multinational websites can be for just one language. So it gets a little bit convoluted. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. First, let's explore the idea of multinational, or to phrase it differently, just global websites if you want to service the entire world or a large part of the world. You're essentially targeting audiences in multiple countries or regions, usually multiple countries, and your website could be multilingual, but it does not have to be. It could be just one language. For example, you can have an English language website targeting clients who may live in the United States, Australia, England, Canada, or even many, many other countries where people speak English. So just one language, but many countries. Same thing with a Spanish language website. Well, obviously there are dozens of countries in the world where there are large Spanish-speaking populations. So you can easily have just one language on your website, but target many countries. So let's talk about what are the things you should think about and be concerned when targeting multinational websites. You may run into the problem of having duplicate content if you make a few websites, which is rarely recommended. Usually you would just still have one website with directories for different countries. Because to create many unique websites, it requires a much greater effort to create those websites, to do all the SEO for those websites, to maintain those websites. Imagine if you have 10 websites versus one. The maintenance amount is just tremendously larger. Unless you have some very specific needs, it's very rare you'd have a few websites, but more commonly, one website with multiple different directories, each directory for each language. But in any case, if you have the same content in the same language, targeting different countries, that content will be very similar, and you start running into the problem and potential danger of having duplicate content, which can get you penalized in Google very severely. Of course, just because of the risk of duplicate content, you don't want to leave this strategy. You want to pursue it still, because targeting many countries or regions will get you indexed and help you rank higher in every location, which means more traffic. So it's a good strategy. The only thing you should really be mindful and be very careful of is to use the Hreflang tag, especially using the attributes of that tag correctly to indicate the language and the region of each website version or page version. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say you have an English language website. The original language doesn't really matter. But what I want to point your attention to is the Hreflang tag. It just says English. But let's say you're making a version of that website in Spanish for the country Spain, and another version of that website also in Spanish, but for the country Mexico. This is the case we're talking about. It's multinational, same language, Spanish, but obviously with unique nuances of that language. So what you would do in your Hreflang tag is specify country code like this. Here we have ES, stands for Spanish, Spain. So ES means for Spanish in Spain. And then you see Spanish in Mexico, we have ES, Spanish, for Mexico. That's how you identify that it's the same version of that page, but targeting that specific country. So if you use these Hreflang tags correctly like that, you should be safe from Google penalizing you from duplicate content penalties, even if you have multiple pages that look very similar to each other. So the duplicate content issue, that's really an issue for multinational websites. But what are the things you have to think about for multilingual websites? For multilingual websites, you can target one or more countries. So one or more countries, that means you can just target one country, but with more than one language. So you can target the United States, but with English, then with Spanish, then with another language that's prominently spoken in United States, and another language that's prominently spoken in United States, because you want to capture people in the United States who speak different languages. For this kind of a case, what you want to focus on is the quality of the translation, because you're not just translating for the language, you're translating for the cultural references and nuances and terminology in each language. Because very likely the Spanish spoken in United States is very different from the Spanish that's the classic Spanish from Spain. So let's discuss what you should focus on for multilingual websites. Luckily for multilingual websites, the duplicate content issue is less of a concern because the content is in a different language, not duplicate. But what really is a concern is the accuracy and the quality of the translations so that it's culturally relevant. To get there, if you need to scale, of course you want to use software to auto-translate. Of course, if you have hundreds or thousands of pages on your website and you want many languages and you want it overnight, you want software to do this for you. But over time, what you also want to do is hire native speakers to go through all the pages or your most important pages only and edit some of the pages in different languages to fit the cultural references so that they read naturally. And that will be much cheaper than writing that content from scratch, not to mention way faster. because you can have an automatic translation essentially overnight. And the individual translator will take a lot of time and will be actually very expensive, like a human translator. But you need to have someone proofread it to assure that the translations are culturally relevant. Now, of course, if the translator goes through 3 pages, 5 pages, 10 pages in a certain language and says, wow, this is so good, then they don't need to go through the 20th or 50th page, because you probably that the auto translation is very good, but you do need somebody to test that. So now that we've covered multilingual, multinational websites, let's look at a strategy for what you might do if you have your own website, because the broadest strategy, right? Like, let's say you want to target every country in every language, what to do? So you do need to allocate resources, one, to buy some sort of automatic translation software, and two, to hire a human translator or at least a proofreader. So what to do in that case? You would need to have auto-generated translations and versions of your pages for every region that you are targeting in every language, while over time simply having the human editor proofread it. If you're low on budget and you just want to risk creating a low quality website without testing, you can, and you can have that overnight. But that's a little bit of a hack, because imagine that you end up with a bad translation and don't even know about it, and you start ranking for a different language that you have no idea if it's well written or not in that language, and the readers in that language don't like the page and they leave the page. Well, that gives Google bad signals, like, hey, this is a bad website, people aren't liking it, they're leaving. And that actually could have a negative impact on your site overall because of the negative signals. Probably it won't, because Google is smart enough to handle things in different languages and do things on a page by page level and a language by language level. But you don't want to leave that to chance. So if you have the budget, definitely ultimately hire a human proofreader. If you don't have the budget, I feel like it's an okay risk if your audience is truly global, or you run ads and you just want more pages that rank. Then you want to translate all your pages and obviously make the financial decision of whether you want to hire a human translator. But in all cases, you see, make sure you use the Hreflang tag correctly. And what you don't do is create many websites, and don't use country-specific domains for that, because it will be a management nightmare. But do use the Hreflang tag correctly. That's really key.